Hey guys, welcome back. A while ago in office hours, gosh, probably 3 or 4 months ago, I told this story that has been repeated many times now about a time I spent the day convincing myself of how kind I was going to be to my husband because I had been very snappy and short and honestly not very kind to him for several days in a row. So while I was preparing dinner, I was sort of mentally rehearsing how incredibly kind I was going to be to him, and how when he came in the door from work, I was going to be so loving, and I was going to plate his dinner for him and be this really lovely, ideal wife. And it felt good when I was sort of daydreaming about it. It had all these amazing, wonderful light qualities. And around 6:30 that night, my husband, Pete, walked in the door, and I'm still rehearsing in my head, and I'm feeling all these, like young love butterfly feelings for him. And I plated his food and he sat down. And when I sat down to get ready to take my first bite, his stomach rumbled from being hungry. And without any, I don't know, control of these words coming out or any ability to hold these words in, what flew out of my mouth was, well, at least your stomach talks. Maybe I should have married your stomach. Ouch. And you could see the look on his face, like, what just happened? Ow. And I immediately felt, first of all, bewilderment. How in the world, after spending so much time planning my kindness, did these harsh, condemning words come out of my mouth? How did I somehow hurt my husband when I had really spent all day planning how to be kind to him? It happened. So I was filled with bewilderment about how it happened. And then because it's what we've been taught as humans, I felt shame and guilt and regret. And what the hell, Missy? And I apologized. But even after the apology, I kind of ruminated in that, what the hell? What is wrong with me? Why am I so cross and mean to him when he hasn't even done anything? And that's kind of what I want to point to today, because it keeps coming up with clients. It keeps coming up in office hours. People showing up asking, like, why? Why am I carrying resentment? Why am I saying mean, cross, angry words when I really don't want to? I know it's not helpful. I know I'm not helping myself. I'm not helping this relationship. And it's with, spouses, partners, children, parents. I see it all over. So I want to read this email I got from one of my clients. Of course, I'm going to leave out names. And then I want to speak directly to this, what the hell? Like, why do we do these things over and over again when we know they're hurtful? They're not helpful. So here's what her email says. Hey, Missy, I'm also a bit in a rut. I'm struggling with being nasty toward my husband, and it's really causing a lot of strain in our relationship. I'm snappy at him, and I have resentment toward him. I live by the story that I'm a victim, so I pity myself all the time. I feel like I want him to feel sorry for me too, with how much I struggle. And I know it's not helpful. I really do want to be loving toward him, but instead, I just lash out. I imagine if you are listening to this video right now, you can think of some area in your life, some arena, some person, doesn't have to be a family member, where you hold some story of resentment, some story of I'm the victim, or I'm the martyr, or they never ... They never compliment me. They never pay enough attention to me. They never listen to me. And the stories go on, and they're so compelling. And when those stories feel deeply real and deeply compelling, it makes sense that the words that come through us would be harsh would be angry words, would be words that are kind of pointed and condemning. It makes perfect sense. So what do we do? Well, I think first of all, we see that it's not a doing. It's not an efforting. It's not a take more control, grip the wheel tighter, make it change. It's not that. It's not a doing. It's a really deeply seeing deeply what is happening here. What is holding these patterns in place? And it amazes me how much we humans tend to be so hard on ourselves collectively. It seems to be stitched right into the costumes. We are incredibly hard on ourselves, and we don't need to be. So what do we do? How do we see? What do we see in this so that things can begin to change outwardly? Because by now we all know outward relationships, outward behaviors, habits, anything like that, they only change after the inside changes. So to this sweet client who wrote that email, and to anyone who is seeing these same patterns playing out with someone in your life, whether it's a spouse, a parent, a child, a doctor, anything, a boss, we begin with grace. We begin with actually letting go. It's so counterintuitive. But if outward behaviors, including words we speak, change as a result of inward softness, grace, compassion, love, then we must begin within. We must begin by seeing that stories are playing that hurt. Beliefs that we didn't choose, beliefs are being held on to that hurt. And these beliefs and these stories, they're ready to be dissolved. They're ready to be let go of so that we walk a little more softly on the earth, so that we are filled with a little more grace and compassion for ourselves, for this costume, this amazing character that's in this form for 100 years. So in light of this, I want to read you a little letter that I wrote, and I read it in office hours last week. I wrote this actually after I had just yelled at Pete. All he was doing was brushing his teeth. He woke up. I was in the bathroom. I was doing my hair and makeup, and he came in and was just innocently brushing his teeth. But I woke up with an old familiar story that I thought had dissolved, but apparently there was a little juice left in it. And the story was, he doesn't pay very much attention to me in the morning. I thought that story was gone. But as I was doing hair and makeup, that story was just like niggling in the back of my head. Pete never pays very much attention to me in the morning. And it was just sort of spinning, and I was kind of buying into it. And so when he innocently came in and started brushing his teeth, I snapped at him. I mean, really for no reason other than I was still buying into that old story. He doesn't pay very much attention to me. He's not a very good husband. These random, ridiculous stories. And I apologized. But instead of lingering in shame and guilt and regret and how I had been wrong, like I did at the dinner table, I immediately dropped the story and came inside, into the sensations, into the emotions, and felt incredible grace and compassion for me, for this system, for this programming that just got picked up along the way. I didn't pick the programming. Pete should spend more time talking to me in the morning. Pete should do these behaviors in order for me to be okay. I didn't choose those programs. So after I apologized for snapping, I immediately dropped the story of shame, guilt, regret, should have, could have, and offered such incredible love and compassion and grace for this Missy, for this adorable little character who's just doing the best she can in this human costume. That is how outward behaviors can begin to change. So I'm going to end with the letter that I wrote after that morning of yelling at Pete in the bathroom, just brushing his teeth. And I came down and I wrote this letter to behavior. And this is what it says. Dear behavior, for a lifetime, I have claimed you as my own. I have embroidered my name in all of your actions, words, and thoughts. I have been the spider in the center of this great universal web, weaving bad decisions, hurtful actions, and damaging choices. Like the time I swatted Taylor's bottom when she was just 3 years old, I not only took ownership of that action, I wrapped myself in the heavy cloak of shame, regret, and guilt. I wore that cloak for years in the name of responsibility. I dutifully played and replayed that moment of spanking her and the image of her face on her face of fear and shame. I believed the lingering images would somehow make me a better mom. I bought the lie that shame and regret are somehow teachers. They're somehow helpers. And then when yelling at Pete happened, I claimed full ownership of that too. Once again, I placed myself in the center of the behavior. I owned it. And in doing so, I added more layers of shame, guilt, and regret. To add insult to injury, I also took on the role of making myself better, as if that was ever my job to do. I innocently believed that learning was something I made happen. So it made sense at the time that learning from my mistakes was somehow on me. I fell for that lie with such conviction that I made my life's work to try harder, to do better, to grip more tightly, to be more strong and powerful. It was my goal to avoid failure at all cost. And do you know what behavior? It's exhausting and it doesn't work. Being the owner and the center of you, behavior, placed an albatross on my back that depleted my resources and my ability to see the light, the truth. It led me into a hall of mirrors where imaginary phrases such as should have and could have actually looked real and solid, where the role of growth and evolution and learning appeared to be something that I do. So here's the thing, behavior. You no longer belong to me. I release you. I release every bit of you, your actions and your words. You no longer belong to me. I release you. You are free to do whatever makes sense in the moment based on what feels real and safe. I release you, and in doing so, I am free. I'm free from the lies of could have and should have. I could have done better. I should have done better. I am free from the lies of I must do better next time. And I am free from believing that I could possibly know the ultimate reason that any behavior occurs. Behavior, from now on, I am taking the rightful position in relation to you. I'm observing you. I'm holding a space for you. I'm noticing what wants to happen in each new moment. I'm noticing judgments and preferences that arise alongside of you. I'm noticing the wishful, magical thinking of coulds and shoulds. But behavior, you're going to do whatever makes sense in the moment. And I am going to be the space of grace, compassion, and unconditional love that holds you and holds me. Learning is going to happen on its own. That's what learning does. So when experiences of contraction and suffering happen following one of my inevitable behaviors, learning is going to follow, not because of me, but because that's how the system works. I will no longer claim that learning process. I release that too. So behavior, you are free. and I am free. Life itself, this great shapeshifter, has already got this. We have endless refresh buttons. We have endless supplies of do-overs, fresh moments, and clean slates. No longer will I be hard on myself. From this point forward, I offer myself grace. And in doing so, behavior, I offer you grace as well. The job of figuring all this out has already been taken. So now, let's go play. I hope this helps. I do want to mention that on office hours this past Monday, one of my beautiful friends, one of the things she said, because she has a behavior she said she knows is not helpful. And yet, even as her mind is saying, this isn't helpful, she's doing this behavior again and again. And one of the things she said that kind of was like the mic drop of the whole office hours this past week was she realized she may do the behavior again, but she's learning. She's giving herself so much grace and compassion for her humanness. So she's having a softer experience of life as she's learning. And what she said was, I no longer tell myself, I'm never going to do it again. Because how can we know? Behavior does behavior. Actions, action. Life, lives. In the meantime, let's give ourselves some grace for being on this learning curve, for being the observer, the witness. We don't have to be hard on ourselves anymore. And ironically, that's how patterns shift. I hope this helps. I love you guys so much, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.